Hey everyone, I want to tell you about Cozy Earth. It's the world's softest sheets. They keep you cool, dry, and comfy all night long. They're moisture wicking, breathable, and they even get softer with every wash. They have PJ sets. Who can't get behind PJ sets? Valentine's is coming up. Get your wife a pajama set. It's Oprah approved. They have free shipping on orders over $50 and a 100-night sleep trial on those bedding sets and a 10-year warranty. And right now, our listeners get to save 40% off using our code INFOGO at CozyEarth.com. Find the link in the show notes. Luxury, comfort, and cool sleep await you at CozyEarth.com. Welcome to the podcast. I'm William.
And I'm Kat.
Perfect. This is Life Without Length, the story of short bowel syndrome. So, Kat, before we really get into this episode, I would like to dedicate this to my grandson, Anthony, with love from the one and only grandman.
What if your body couldn't absorb the food you eat, not because of what you eat, but because you're missing most of your intestines?
Yeah, so short bowel syndrome, or SBS, is a rare but powerful example of how the human body adapts when something essential is missing. So, short bowel syndrome, or SBS, is a rare but powerful example of how the human body adapts when something essential is missing.
It challenges what we think we know about survival, showing how medicine, science, and determination can make up for what nature left out.
I guess we'll cover what SBS actually is, what causes it, from birth defects to disease and surgery, and how patients survive with only a fraction of their intestines.
And the science behind nutrition support, transplants, and adaptation, the emotional and social impact of living with this lifelong condition.
Yeah, so when most babies are born with nearly 25 feet of small intestine, they only have a few inches. Doctors called it short bowel syndrome, a condition so rare that even some hospitals have never really heard of it. Well, they've never really seen cases of SBS. So, in the early days of SBS, feeding wasn't really simple, right? Every drop of milk, every nutrient had to come through a line, either in the arm. Machines did what the intestines couldn't, uh, keeping these babies alive, one bag of nutrition at a time, right?
Right.
So, but what really amazes everyone isn't just the medicine. It's despite everything, these kids continue to smile, they grow, and they show us what it means to fight when your body gives you so little to work with.
So, the definition of short bowel syndrome is a rare malabsorption disorder that occurs when large sections of the small intestine are missing, removed, or non functional.
So the condition prevents the body from properly absorbing nutrients, fluids, and electrolytes from food, even when the digestion itself is normal.
SBS isn't a single disease, though. It's rather the result of many possible conditions that reduce the effective length or function of the intestines.
So the small intestine in a healthy adult is typically 25 to 20 feet long, roughly the length of a small bus, right?
So it has three sections: the duodenum, the jejunum, and the ileum, each responsible for different stages of nutrient absorption. The inner lining is covered with millions of villi, which are tiny finger like projections that dramatically increase the surface area for absorption. Most nutrients, vitamins, and minerals are absorbed here before food reaches the large intestine.
So people with SBS have only a few feet, or in extreme cases, just inches of small intestines that remain, right? With so little surface area left, the body cannot absorb enough calories, protein, fat, vitamins, or fluids to really sustain normal life without medical intervention. The severity of SBS really depends on how much intestine remains, which sections were removed, and whether the colon, the large intestine, is still functional.
The core problem here is less intestine means less surface area available to absorb essential nutrients and fluids. So the remaining intestine often works faster, pushing food through too quickly for proper absorption. And this also leads to chronic nutrient and fluid loss even when eating a full diet.
So, key function lost here. Nutrients, poor uptake of carbohydrates, proteins, fats, vitamins, and minerals, fluid and electrolyte balance. Excess water loss causes chronic dehydration, digestive regulation. Shorter transit time means food moves too quickly through the gut for full breakdown. And then the bile acid recycling. The loss of ileum impairs fat digestion, vitamin absorption, especially A, D, E, and K. To break all that down, the body doesn't really absorb all the nutrients that most people do, right?
Right. The common symptoms of this is chronic diarrhea, severe malnutrition, dehydration, weight loss and muscle wasting, fatigue and weakness, bloating and abdominal pain, growth delays in children due to poor nutrient absorption during critical development stages.
Yeah, it goes back to that dehydration, that chronic diarrhea, which is watery stools uh, from those liquids that weren't really absorbed as they went through the bowels. So this kind of leads to into that dehydration part of it. And then the weight loss and the muscle wasting. Well, that's because the body can't really absorb those calories. And that's kind of what causes what Kat was talking about, the fatigue and weakness, because the body really doesn't get to absorb those vitamins and those minerals. So it it kind of causes a whole lot of different problems here. I guess think of the intestine as a giant sponge, and it's full of folds and ridges that are designed to soak up all of these nutrients. In short bowel syndrome, most of that sponge is gone, and it leaves the body to survive on just what little surface remains.
It is rare, but it is still a powerful example of how the human body adapts when something essential is missing. And it's a condition that forces doctors, scientists, and families to rethink what survival really means. Because for people with SBS, life depends not on what's inside the body, but on how the body learns to adjust, rebuild, and to keep going with less than nature intended.
I think in this episode, we're going to look at how patients survive, sometimes with only a few inches of intestine left, and how modern medicine uh, kind of bridges that gap between what they have and what they should have, right? So we'll
Right.
dig into the science of nutrition, transplants, and the body's remarkable ability to adapt.
And finally, we'll talk about the emotional and social side of living with it, and the families behind the machines, and the strength it takes to turn a fragile beginning into a full, meaningful life.
Some babies are born with intestinal malformations or defects that prevent the intestines from forming or functioning naturally. These are among the rarest but most dramatic cases of SBS.
So, number one is intestinal atresia, a condition where part of the small intestine is missing, closed off, or disconnected during fetal development. And so this prevents food and fluids from passing through the digestive tract. Surgeons often have to remove the blocked or non functional sections shortly after birth, leaving the baby with less intestine than normal. And the severity really depends on how long the missing or damaged segment is. So some babies may lose just a few inches, while others are left with only a few centimeters.
Gastroscopus. This is a birth defect where the baby's intestines, well, they develop outside the body through an opening in the abdominal wall. The exposed intestines can become damaged by Amniotic fluid are twisted before birth. Even after surgical repair, some sections may no longer function properly and must be removed, leading to SBS.
So, number three is intestinal malrotation or volvulus or twisting. Occasionally, the intestines twist abnormally during development, cutting off blood flow. And this causes sections of the intestine to die before or shortly after birth, forcing emergency surgery and bowel removal. It's one of the leading surgical causes of neonatal SBS.
Infants with these congenital conditions often start life with a fraction of normal intestinal length. They typically require immediate medical intervention, intravenous nutrition, and long-term intestinal rehabilitation.
Okay, so now we're moving into the acquired afterbirth causes. And so, in many cases, SBS develops later in life when diseases, injuries, or surgeries require large portions of the small intestine to be removed.
Necrotizing enterocolitis, NEC. This is the most common cause of SBS in premature infants. NEC occurs when parts of the intestine become inflamed, infected, and die due to the lack of oxygen or bacteria invasion. So, to save the baby's life, surgeons must remove the damaged sections, sometimes more than half of the intestine. Surviving infants, well, they face lifelong nutritional challenges and dependence on IV feeding.
And number two is Crohn's disease, which is a chronic inflammatory condition of the digestive tract that can cause deep ulcers and scarring. And so, repeated surgeries to remove damaged sections can eventually leave too little intestine for adequate absorption. Patients may gradually transition from normal digestion to partial or full SBS as more bowel is lost.
Mesenteric ischemia, which is a sudden or chronic loss of blood supply to the intestines. And this is often due to blood clots, low blood pressure, or arterial disease. The affected tissue dies quickly and must be surgically removed, most common in older adults, but this can occur in anyone after trauma or severe illness. Wow.
Sorry, now I feel hateful. I feel like I have to apologize because I feel like I said atrial rough, like mean. I
You
didn't.
did. You hurt my feelings. I almost
I'm
cried.
sorry.
It's all good.
I'm sorry.
Just playing with you. I don't care. Let's go. It's been a hot minute,
All right.
so let's get back into this thing.
So next up, we have traumatic injury or abdominal surgery, where severe accidents, things like gunshot wounds or just regular abdominal surgeries can damage or remove large portions of the intestine. And though rare, these cases can lead to sudden onset of SBS in previously healthy adults.
Traumatic injuries, such as gunshot wounds. Dang, I mean, that's gotta be rough.
Yeah, I don't think that sounds like a fun time to me.
No, it doesn't. I mean, none of it sounds like a fun time, but a gunshot wound that would take out half of that, like, I don't even know, man. Cancer and tumor resections. This is when intestinal or abdominal cancers may require large resections to be removed due to tumors or tissues that are cancerous, right?
Mhm.
Post-surgical patients can develop SBS, and this really depends on how much of the bowel um, was taken out or has to be taken out.
So, a quick little fact here. In adults, the most common cause of short bowel syndrome is the bowel resection surgery following mesenteric ischemia, which is the loss of blood flow, and cancer-related surgery or trauma or injury. In infants, it's most often linked to necrotizing enterocolitis or intestinal atresia.
When large portions of the intestines are removed, digestion and absorption, well, they drop sharply. And so the remaining intestines, well, they must suddenly handle all nutrient and fluid absorption with much less surface area. So early on, patients often rely entirely on uh, IVs or TPN to really stay alive while the gut tries to adjust.
And so over time, the remaining intestine begins a process called intestinal adaptation, where the body's natural attempt to retain and enhance the efficiency of what's left. And the lining of the intestine actually changes in structure and function to absorb more from each meal. But this process is most active during the first 12 to 24 months after bowel loss and is key to long-term survival.
And then you got some physical changes that are going on in the remaining intestines. The bacillus growth, the tiny finger-like projections called villi and microvilli. Well, they become longer and thicker, increasing the absorption surface area. And this really helps the intestine extract more nutrients from the same amount of food.
So the remaining intestine gradually widens, allowing it to hold food longer and slow down digestion, giving nutrients more time to be absorbed.
So the intestinal muscles and nerves, they adjust to slow the movement or transit time of food through the gut. It's a slower transit time, and it means the body has more opportunity to pull nutrients and fluid from what passes through.
And the inner lining or the mucosa grows thicker and develops more transport cells to maximize nutrient uptake.
And before we get into the colon and we continue on, I say we take a small break here.
Sounds good.
Yeah, we need it.
Oh man.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey, everybody, we want to tell you about strong coffee. You know, every morning it starts with a choice. You can settle for just coffee, or you can rise up with strong coffee. And it's the world's strongest cup of joe. You know, strong isn't just a drink, it's a movement. It stands for striving to reach our natural greatness.
It's born from one simple need to be better. They rebuilt coffee from the ground up, infusing organic coffee with collagen, protein, nootropics, and functional ingredients that fuel your body and sharpen your mind. No crash, no compromises, just clean energy, focus, and flavor that fires you up.
Yeah, so whether you're chasing kids, chasing goals, or chasing greatness, don't just do it with coffee, do it with strong coffee. And our listeners can save 20% off just by using our code INFOGO at checkout. Hey, if you're looking for your favorite band or sports team or TV show, check out Old Glory. They've been in operation since 1969 and they have over 300,000 items. You know, they have from the Beatles all the way to Metallica, NFL, NBA. It really doesn't matter what you're looking for. They have tees, hoodies, hats, gifts, everything a true fan could ever want. And it's family owned and operated. They have fast shipping, free standard delivery on every order. And you know what? Our listeners get a 15% off at checkout using our code INFOGO. You can find the link in the show notes. All right, so now that we're back, we're going to get into the supporting roles from other organs, such as the colon, large intestine, if you will. If still intact, the colon takes on an expanded role in fluid and nutrient absorption. So it absorbs water, electrolytes, and short chain fatty acids, and they're produced by the gut bacteria, a crucial backup system for hydration and partial energy recovery. Patients who retain their colon generally have better long term outcomes than those who lose their colon.
Makes sense. So it even changes the stomach and how it works too. The stomach may slow down emptying to help control the rate at which food enters the shortened intestine. And this adjustment can help reduce diarrhea and improve absorption efficiency.
So the liver bears a heavy load during adaptation, especially in patients dependent on total
Parental.
parental nutrition. Thank you. TPN. I could not, for some reason, get it out. It processes the nutrients from IV feeding, but it becomes stressed or damaged over time, leading to TPN associated liver disease. So, being on TPN can kind of really mess with the liver. So, so really, doctors they have to carefully monitor and cycle off of TPN when possible, which is key to protecting the liver health.
Right. And so the time frame here with adaptation is the process that usually takes 1 to 2 years, though improvements can continue for several years with proper diet and therapy.
Okay, but you do have some positive influences here. Retaining the ileum, which is the last section of the small intestine, and colon. Well, this improves nutrient and fluid absorption. So, gradual reintroduction of food orally, well, this can help stimulate intestinal growth and function. It's that use it or lose it principle that you've heard of. And hormonal factors like GLP-2s, which are glucagon like peptide 2, they also promote intestinal growth and adaptation.
So there are some limiting factors here, though. Very short remaining segments, infection, or poor blood flow can slow or halt adaptation. And so long-term dependence on IV feeding may persist if the body can't adapt enough for normal nutrition.
You, the listener, just imagine your digestive system as a 10-lane highway that suddenly gets reduced to 2 lanes. Well, the traffic, your food, it still moves, but it really slows down, backs up, and sometimes even stalls. Over time, your body learns to manage that reduced flow, expanding lanes where it can, building detours, and finding ways to, well, keep things moving. That's really the intestinal adaptation in action. That's kind of what we're talking about.
So, what is life like on intravenous nutrition or TPN? And like we talked about up above, TPN stands for total parenteral nutrition. And it's a method of feeding patients entirely through an IV, bypassing the gastrointestinal tract. And nutrients are delivered directly to the bloodstream via a central catheter or specialized IV line.
So, what is the composition of TPN? Well, it's glucose, which provides energy or calories for daily activity and metabolism. It also provides amino acids. This is the supply, essentially building blocks for protein, muscle, muscle growth and repair, right? Then you have the fats, and these are concentrated energy source. They're essential fatty acids for cell function. And then you have the electrolytes. And as we know, electrolytes maintain fluid balance, nerve function, and heart rhythm. Then you have the vitamins and minerals, and they support the metabolic processes and prevent deficiencies.
Right. So there are some benefits of TPN. For one, it's life saving and it keeps patients alive even with no functioning intestines or extremely short bowel length. And it allows time for remaining intestines to adapt and grow if possible. It's also customizable. Formulas can be adjusted to meet specific caloric intake, protein, and micronutrient needs. And it's kind of like a bridge to surgery or transplant. TPN sustains patients while waiting for intestinal transplants or other interventions.
But there are challenges and risk, infections. The central catheter is a direct pathway to the bloodstream, and this increases the risk of catheter related sepsis. You got liver complications. Long term TPN use can cause TPN associated liver disease, including fatty liver, cholestasis, or liver failure. Then you have the bone and mineral issues, where some patients may develop osteopenia or metabolic bone disease. And this is really due to the long term nutrition imbalances.
Patients often spend 10 to 12 hours connected to TPN daily, usually at night. And being tethered to a machine can affect sleep, mobility, social life, and even mental health. So, families often take on caregiving responsibilities, learning to manage and troubleshoot the system at home.
Oh yeah, I know with my grandsons, that system, I don't know how his mom and great grandmother do it, but when that thing goes off, it can be very intimidating. And I'll have to sometimes FaceTime and they're like, "Oh yeah, just hit this, this, and this. You're fine." You like, okay. Like I'm scared I'm gonna hurt him or something, you know?
Yeah.
But imagine a day in the life of somebody with SBS. Like, so they finished their meal, then they connected this TPN line for 12 hours overnight while the IV runs. You know, they have to sleep, study, or play. You know, this machine, it's both a lifeline and a reminder of how the body depends on careful medical support.
The first long term TPN patients survived in the 1960s, marking a medical breakthrough that made survival possible for patients with non functional intestines. And before TPN, many infants and adults with SBS could not survive, making this therapy one of the most important advances in modern nutrition science.
Wow, the 1960s.
That's crazy.
I wouldn't have thought it was around that long.
No, me either.
You know, but the increase in the functional length of the remaining small intestine to improve nutrients and fluid absorption, well, this really helps patients reduce dependence on TPN and improve their quality of life.
And some key techniques here we have STEP, which stands for serial transverse enteroplasty. And it's a procedure that cuts and reshapes the intestine in a zigzag pattern. This effectively lengthens the bowel and slows transit time and promotes better nutrition absorption by increasing surface area and retention time.
Bianchi procedure. This is where the intestine is split lengthwise and then rejoined, creating two parallel channels. And this really doubles the effective length and reduces diarrhea by slowing food passage. And surgical lengthening can allow some patients to wean off of TPN partially or entirely. Success, though, it really depends on the remaining bile, presence of the colon, and overall health.
They also have intestinal transplants, and the purpose really is an option for patients who cannot survive on TPN long term due to liver damage, infections, or an extremely short bowel.
Yeah, but that procedure it replaces all or part of the small intestine with a donor organ, and this may include the liver in a combined transplant if TPN has caused liver failure.
But there are some risks involved. It's high risk, it's life-saving surgery, but it requires lifelong immunosuppression to prevent organ rejection. And patients need close monitoring, frequent checkups, and careful management of diet and medications.
Success rates have improved significantly over the last 2 decades, and it offers hope for long-term survival when TPN is no longer a viable option for some of these patients.
Right. There are some other therapies coming about. We got hormone therapy. GLP-2 analogs stimulate the remaining intestine to grow and function more efficiently, which helps reduce TPN dependence and improve nutrient absorption.
And then you have artificial intestines. Researchers are developing bioengineered intestinal scaffolds. And these are cells grown on these scaffolds that could one day replace or repair the damaged bile. Early experiments in animals, like growing human intestinal segments in mice, show promising potential for future regenerative medicine.
Sorry. You did really good, except for when you said bowel after replace or repair damaged bowel. You said like bile, like real country.
Okay,
Bile.
bile,
Bile. Yeah. No,
bile,
it's bowel.
bowel,
Yeah.
bowel, like
Yeah.
bowel, bowel. Okay,
Like bowl, but bowel. That sounds pretty cool.
okay.
Regrowing your bowels.
That does sound it sounds futuristic, but I mean they're already doing it. And we have such a lengthy FDA process here in the United States that
Right.
I think this would be life-changing for, even though this is a rare disease, this would be life-changing for these patients.
Right. This this regenerative medicine is definitely futuristic, like you said. And that really is kind of exciting for the future. All right, so let's get on to the patient side of this. There is a heavy emotional and social impact. There's isolation, and SBS patients often require constant medical care, which can make social interactions and outings really difficult. Children may feel different from peers due to feeding tubes, TPN lines, or even dietary restrictions. And some adults may experience anxiety, depression, or stress related to dependence on medical equipment.
Yeah, and then you have the family caregiving part of it, you know. So oftentimes, families become full-time caregivers, managing TPN connections, medications, doctor visits, going to the hospital when there's that infection or sepsis in the line and the line has to be replaced. And then there's the emotional stress that is compounded by the need to learn, well, these complex medical procedures at home, like replacing this line or doing X and Y and Z. I know for me, it is very stressful because I'm not in the know of how to do it.
Right. And there's child specific challenges too. Feeding tubes and frequent hospital visits can disrupt daily routines and schooling. And some children experience developmental delays or fatigue that affects learning and play. So social integration can be difficult, leading to feelings of isolation or different from their peers.
Organizations like the Olay Foundation provide education, resources, and emotional support for families and patients. You have peer communities, which allow sharing of tips, coping strategies, and encouragement.
Many patients with SBS, with careful management, attend school, work, and pursue hobbies. So the modern medical advances that we have today really make longer term survival possible.
I think here we should say the human spirit often shines through challenges, adapting routines, finding humor in difficult situations, and celebrating those small victories. I mean, what was once a being born with SBS was basically a death sentence, and then in the 1960s, it changed. I mean, we're ever evolving as humans and able to figure out these diseases and how to combat with them, right?
Right. So, back to the bioengineered intestines. Scientists are experimenting with stem cell derived intestinal tissue to create new functional bowel segments. And the goal is to one day provide replacement intestines for patients with extremely short bowel, reducing or eliminating TPN dependence.
And then you have that gut microbiome. And these are therapies where researchers are studying how healthy gut bacteria can enhance nutrient absorption through gut adaptation. Microbiome manipulation may help reduce diarrhea, improve metabolism, and support intestinal growth. That would be huge.
There's also advanced TPN systems, where the next generation TPN machines aim to mimic natural digestion rhythms, delivering nutrients more efficiently and safely.
I think the innovations really could reduce the liver stress, prevent complications, and give patients more flexibility and freedom in their everyday lives from TPN.
Right. SBS really illustrates the limits of human biology, but also its remarkable adaptability. Medical science often stands in for missing natural functions, bridging gaps in nutrition, absorption, and organ function. So, patients, families, and doctors together demonstrate that resilience, innovation, and determination can transform survival into a meaningful life.
So SBS may be defined by what's missing, but the stories of those who live with it are defined by creativity, courage, and adaptation. From advanced medical care to tiny daily routines, SBS reminds us of the brilliance of the human body and the minds that support it.
The small intestine may be short in these patients, but their stories of survival, science, and strength are anything but.
Absolutely, I would agree with that. I thought this was really interesting for me. I mean, it hits home for me because I know someone with this, but I really didn't know a lot about it until I started researching it.
Right. We do have some fun facts in here.
We do.
Yeah. th- The average adult small intestine is about the length of a school bus.
Yeah, your intestines replace their lining every 3 to 5 days. One of the fastest cell turnovers in your body. Dang, I didn't know that.
Ooh. Some patients with SBS develop food nostalgia, missing the simple act of eating.
Mm. And the first successful intestinal transplant was performed in 1987.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't even know that was a thing. Did you?
Well, not for the intestines, but I think that's pretty cool that they figured out how to make it work like that. I knew about like liver transplants and kidney transplants and
Yeah,
heart transplants.
same. And I didn't think because of the biome of the intestine, I didn't think there was a such thing as a transplant.
I can see that.
I, maybe that's something we can do in the future, those transplants, because I don't know a lot about that.
Absolutely. That sounds good to me.
Yeah, that's pretty much all I've got, Kat.
Me too. If you would like to support this podcast, tell a friend and help get the word out.
If you would like to help us keep the show going, you can do so at Patreon. You can find that link in the show notes.
And as always, William and I want to thank you for listening.
Yes, thank you.
Join the Facebook group at Info on the Go
Over there, you can share with us your show ideas.
or ask us a question.
Make sure, whatever platform you're listening to us on, follow us. It's either in the right top hand corner if you're on Apple. If you're on Spotify, it's the little check marks, but make sure you hit that follow button.
Yes. And send us a text using the link in the show notes or leave a review.
Leaving that review really does help others find us, but you can also email us directly at.
Info on the Go podcast at gmail.com.
You can find that email link in the show notes. Till next time.
Stay curious.